Welcome back. It's Sam Dobrow here, and I am going to present Cuba, Living Under the Shadow. This is going to be an extended version of the earlier presentation. There's been several people that have shown enormous interest in my portfolio, so I've added a few new images to the show, and I will talk through the whole concept of this, and hopefully everyone will get a chance to enjoy some new artwork that's just recently being presented. And so let's get started. Okay, this starts off with an overview of Havana Harbor at sunset. You can see the city of Havana in the distance, and we're shooting from the old fort. Again, looking out over Havana Bay, and across the bay is the famous Malecon, which is the Bayfront Highway where everyone comes to gather in the evenings for entertainment and social activities. This series is called Living Under the Shadow. The reason I named it that is because my impressions of Cuba when I went there led me to the understanding how the Cuban people really live under oppression. They live under a very totalitarian government and in constant fear of what the government might do to them. And the style that I photographed in is kind of an allegory of living under the shadow. A lot of the images that are presented are shot with silhouettes, deep shadows to kind of foretell the story and the feelings of what it's like to be a citizen of Cuba. This is another shot after sunset, again showing the city lights rising up over the over Havana, and again, from a distance, it looks just like any other city might in the evenings. And the other thing to think about is right behind us is something we're forbidden to take photographs of. It's a military college, and we were told that if we want to keep our cameras, that we should not go in the other direction and certainly not take any photographs of the military college located to the back side of this scene. Walking around in downtown Havana was very interesting at night. This image is called The Child Who Could Be Someone. And I see this child sitting out here. You'll see them right here, just sitting out here on this bench with some other adults. And you think about what kind of future does this child have? What are their opportunities that this child might have living in Cuba versus if they were somewhere else? And what kind of great skills, what kind of talent might this child have? And so we see this child sitting out here in the street, and it just brings us to the wondering of what potential is ahead of this child and what might be lost as a result of the totalitarian regime in which they live. As I mentioned, the people in Cuba are terrified of the government. They don't want anyone to think they're hiding anything. This gentleman was standing outside of his home, door open for everyone to see. As I walked by with my camera, he said, "Sure, take a look inside. If you're interested, sure, just take a walk inside. No problem. Just take a look around." And he proceeded to let me take a look around, take pictures inside this home. It was nothing extravagant, just a courtyard. And he also asked me on the way out if I could help him with just $1 US, explaining the enormous buying power of $1 compared to one of the Cuban currency that's issued by the government that's only allowed to be spent in the government stores. The Cuban currency, there's two of them. One Cuban currency is for tourists, and it's about equivalent to the dollar in value. And the other one is the currency that's only for locals. It's illegal for a tourist to own or be in possession of those, and it's only for use in the government sanctioned stores. I was told that the products in the government stores are inferior, and that if you want to get the good quality products like the Nike shoes, the designer clothes, you have to have foreign currency. And the dollar and the euro are the two foreign currencies that go a long way. And just a little bit of that foreign currency buys so much in Cuba. Here we see kind of a shadowy situation. I call this shady deal. Old car out in front of this pub. There's a gentleman who runs the taxi here, the pedestrian powered taxi driving by, looking for a customer, and the just the nature of this car, the way it's obviously been rebuilt many times from the rust and all the other pieces of putting it together, just kind of give you a sense of where Cuba is in this modern world, or where it came from and never quite emerged out of. Here's one of the nicer taxis. Again, the taxi driver looks for tourists that he can move around, and they try to make their taxis look as comfortable and inviting as possible. It's important to negotiate the rate for where you're going and make sure you specify exactly which currency is that you're paying, so that when you get to some place, there's no confusion. A lot of times they'll change the price on you, talk about a different currency. A lot of different things go on here as the locals try to find any way they can to obtain foreign currency for the luxuries in life. And again, Che Guevara was part of the Cuban Revolution. He was known for his notorious tortures and murderous regime as he sought to topple the capitalist government and institute a communist socialist regime with Castro. His presence is still very much everywhere, and the name Che means friend. And if you were not Che's friend, you were his enemy, and things were not very nice for people that were not on Che's friends list. This is a little propaganda store with stuff you can buy. It was out near a road stop with a variety of other tourist items, but obviously the Cuban propaganda is the big item here. Part of living under the shadow, again, it's the allegory of people hiding in plain sight. We went to this restaurant. They were cooking these barbecue chickens, and as you see, this chef is obviously silhouetted in the shade, but there's also this individual here, which is very easy to miss. He's kind of hiding in the shadows, again, showing very much a sense of not wanting to be seen, not wanting to be surveilled, and again, living in the shadow, in the deep shade. This image is of the countryside on the way to Vinales. I like the view of this countryside. It gives you a sense of the rural nature of Cuba. And of course, this woman here in the foreground, silhouetted, can't quite identify who she is, but certainly it gives you the feeling that she's also hiding in plain sight. This looks like a taxi stand, or maybe even a taxi repair center. I'm not sure what it was. We were out on the street. We walked by and saw this gentleman kind of standing at the gate. Whether he's looking for a ride or waiting for someone, we're not sure. But it is kind of an interesting portrait of him and the taxi stand behind him in this dilapidated courtyard of a building. This is out along the Malecon late in the day as the sun is going down. And these gentlemen are playing for money. And as I come along with my camera, obviously they want to entertain me. They want to attract my attention. And hopefully I will pay them for their entertainment. At the same time, there's a sense of paranoia that you can see in their expression, especially this gentleman over here to the right. He really looks like he's afraid of something that's just mistrusting. And again, this gentleman looks very much like he's trying to put it out front to be entertaining, but there's also kind of like behind the facade, there's a sense of hopelessness, a sense of paranoia, a sense of insecurity. We have a couple of boys out here fishing. They're certainly not fishing for anything other than perhaps subsistence. It's very difficult for the Cubans to find enough money to put food on their table. The stipend that's offered by the government is usually only about 50% of what a family needs in order to feed itself. And so it's very important that they find other ways to generate income and or to find food, and certainly fishing by these boys in the shadows of the night and the silhouette against the water again talks to me of the oppression of the people and the sense of despair that they face. The village of Vinales, we see this gentleman in his horse-pulled cart. You can see it's an older cart. There's a sense that this is a very used cart. The treads are almost bare. And again, this man is sitting here under the deep shadow of his wide-brimmed hat, apparently hiding in plain sight. And I also draw the attention to the blinders on the horse. Now, obviously, we know that the blinders are there to direct the horse only forward, but it also kind of speaks to the blinders that people wear themselves as to not see or be seen by the government. Also kind of like this tower in the background. Not exactly sure what it is, but it does seem like it could potentially be something for observation. Not sure. Here we have a shed on a tobacco farm. This is a rather well-to-do tobacco farmer. This gentleman runs a very large tobacco farm. He grows some of the finest tobacco, which is used in the Cuban cigars, which Fidel Castro was famous for the quality of the roll, the quality of the tobacco, the quality of the burn. And we also see these bicycles, which are the primary form of transportation. Occasionally, we would see a horse-drawn buggy in the background going along the street, but most of the people seem to get around either on bicycle or horse-drawn buggies out here in the village. And I like the rustic tone of the wood. This is really a pretty well-kept shed. It's in very good condition. Another allegory here of living under the shadow. Our guide is calling me to show me where the tobacco is dried. This large grass hut is used as a hothouse where the tobacco is hung and it's slowly dried so it doesn't mold and it maintains a very good flavor. Again, he's kind of under the shadow. Barely see him, see his identity in the shadow here as he looks to gesture me onward. This is the big jefe. I call him Papo. That's not his real name. He is the farmer, and he seems at times a little sinister, like he has certain powers and authorities that other Cubans don't have. He seems to do very well for himself, his house, his plantation, the people that work for him, the acreage that he manages. So he must be well taken care of. And it was interesting. He demonstrated the rolling of a cigar, and we were told that this is too green to smoke. Let it dry out for a while before you smoke it, probably a week to 10 days. And I asked him, what happens if I smoke it now? And he just kind of chuckled, and then he pulled a cigar out of his pocket and handed to me and says, "Go smoke this one." And so I picked it up, went outside the shed and took a walk down the street and started smoking it. Didn't inhale it at all, just puffed on it. But the amount of nicotine that rushed into my body through just puffing on the cigar was an amazing rush. And it was fairly strong. I'll say, it just the smoke hitting my eyes, it was burning. I'm not a cigar aficionado. I smoke them on very rare occasions, and I certainly don't smoke any other form of tobacco. But this was just give it a try, and it was quite interesting. It was stronger, more powerful than anything I'd ever tried before. In Cuba, boxing is one of the big occupations. Cuba is famous for developing world champion boxers, and this boxing ring that we went to was a place that is known for bringing some of the world's champion boxers into professional competition. While we were here, we were able to watch some boxing spars, some training, and this gentleman here was shadow boxing. He was practicing his moves, and again, just being in the foreground as an imposing figure, but yet silhouetted, symbolizing, again, hiding in plain sight. This was back at the tobacco farm. This is one of the top aides. I guess he might be one of the foremen to the harvesting operation. And we take a look at him as he's hanging on the bars, staring into the residence. And it just, again, presents a feeling of confinement, of being caged, of not really having true personal freedom, as he just, hangs here with a cigar in his hand, looking in at the tourists, which is us, inside the house, getting a sample of some rum and some smoked tobaccos. Walking down the streets with my cigar in hand, I had a chance to see some of the local residents here, being always cautious about who I photograph and their desire to be photographed. I always signal first that I'd like to take a photograph and get their permission. And this gentleman had the paper in his lap. When he kind of nodded, it was okay, and he let me take a picture. And then after I took the first picture, he pulled the paper up in front of me and peered over it, and to give me this gesture, which just absolutely knocked me off my socks as far as the hiding in plain sight, the feeling of surveillance that he portrayed to me in this unsolicited pose. And then reading the newspaper, I was told that this is a propaganda newspaper. It talks about the economics of the government, and it's some type of economic newspaper that's definitely propaganda based. I call this one the Daily Read. At night, we have musicians playing in the street, just as we did at sunset along the Malecon. There are bars and open parties where people come out and they dance on the streets. And again, I like this shot. It's, again, a silhouette. You can see the features, just barely some of the features of the musicians, with the backdrop of the dancers and the party in the background. And again, I like the silhouetting of this, and again, the focus on the concept of living in the shadows. And this is kind of an interesting thing I ran across. I've seen these animals. I'm not sure what they are. They're some type of a rodent. They could be a rat. I'm not sure. They're rather large, and I've seen them in cages in several places around Havana. But this just rang out to me as just, again, the people of Cuba who feel oppressed, finding a way to vent that oppression on other helpless animals. And of course, this animal here is caged, and he looks caged. He doesn't look happy, and we don't know if he's for food or if he's a pet. But it just struck me as, again, part of the symbolism of the oppression of the Cuban people. And again, walking along the street, we ran across this propaganda stand. There's a variety of pictures here of Fidel Castro and Che Guevara. I've translated some of these signs They read things like, what is fair is to apply justice when a crime is committed. What is unfair is to use it for opportunism. That is fascism. Martyrs for the country. If you do not fulfill your duties, you should not claim rights. A united people is the main guarantee that we can always shout in this land, long live free Cuba. So again, this is some of the propaganda that was for sale, books, photographs of the Cuban regime. In the streets of Havana, downtown at night, there is entertainment, there is drinking establishments, and a lot of tourists go out at night to party while they're there. This is one bar, restaurant bar. They were busy. There was a wait to get inside to be served. The service was slow, but the food was good, and we were sitting here being entertained and buying drinks while waiting for our chance to be seated at a table. I like the cigarette smoke that the taxi driver's got glowing as he gives me a look as if maybe I'm a potential mark as a customer that he could transport home with some of my other obviously tourist buddies. Here we have an outdoor barbershop taken late in the day, the long shadows, again, working for the allegory of people under oppression. All of these guys were, waved to me that it was okay to take their picture. They didn't seem to be exceptionally happy, but they weren't resisting or protesting in any way. But the expressions on their face show that they don't like necessarily having their identity seen. They feel vulnerable. They're not glad, but they're not resisting. They're not saying no. They're just saying, okay, do it, but get lost. And again, we have another boxer. Now, what struck me about this one, again, this boxer was in the shadows. He's got a little bit more light cast on him, like he's almost emerging from the shadows just slightly. But if you look at his form, this guy is obviously training. He is 100% muscle. There's no fat to be seen anywhere on his bones, and it makes you feel that he's almost malnourished, but yet fighting for life. And that's why I call this the fight to live, because I think you can see that he expects that if he can become a powerful boxer, that he can become famous, that perhaps he can climb out of the shadows one day and become a privileged individual. And here, to me, this is also so much a statement of oppression. I call this photo, "Submission is Fruitful." Obviously, this dog is being submissive. He's wearing some kind of outfit, looks like a child's sweatshirt or something of that nature. It seems to be constraining him a little bit. And the cigarette up here held in the owner's hand. To me, this is the sign of the oppression. This is big government standing above him. He doesn't look up. He doesn't look anywhere but down. He sits there in obedience and submission without a leash, without anything holding him back, just the cigarette there. And here he is, being submission, complete and total submission. Another picture, some individuals, I call this brothers in arms. This gentleman in the red shirt looks like he's a friend of this guy who can't walk. The guy that's sitting down here looks like he's in bad shape. It's like he's signaling for some help. Can you help this guy? He's obviously in bad shape. If you take a look at his foot, it looks pretty rancid, dirty. He's obviously having a hard time walking. and just the foot itself just looks infected, maybe even possibly have gangrene or something else that's really, really bad that's happened to his foot. And he doesn't look that old of a guy. He doesn't look that old, but he does look like he's been beaten, worn down, unhealthy, malnourished, unclean. And of course, right behind him, he has his cane. His cane is probably his most prized possession. Without that, who knows? And again, what does he have? Maybe a bag of clothes, something in here, a crushed water bottle sits at his side. Looks like it was maybe full of mud. Who knows what it is? Who knows if this is garbage? This is probably his home. It looks like where he sleeps. And that's the end of Cuba, Living Under the Shadow. I have assembled a portfolio of 11 prints from this show. Each of these are 11 by 14 C prints, chromogenic prints, produced on photographic paper, but with a light process and wet chemistry to produce it. They are bound in a very high-end Pina Zingaro semi-transparent acrylic binder. Each of the prints are inserted into an archival storage envelope, and it reads like a book. Each individual print is signed on the back, and it also has a serial number for the whole portfolio. And the portfolio has a certificate of authenticity signed by me, listing each individual print by name, and the serial numbers tie each of the prints together as a portfolio. This is available. It's a one-of-a-kind for $700. I will also produce other portfolios for individuals with a minimum of 10 pages up to 25, and they will be priced at $50 per page plus $150 for the portfolio binding. If you're interested, please check with me on my contact page at samdobrowphotography.com. Again, that's samdobrowphotography.com. This is it for my show, for my artist talk. I hope you've enjoyed the additional prints that have been presented today and some of the additional information that goes along with them. It's really nice, very nice book. Again, all the pages in here signed on the back. And there's a certificate of authenticity in the very back of the book. Which I will show you momentarily. And again, there's a certificate of authenticity. And if you're interested in owning this portfolio or one like it, just let me know.